not condone a course of action that will lead us to war.
For the prequels, George Lucas was now telling the story of Star Wars at the height of the culture. There's a queen on the throne, so of course she's going to have that sort of royal court appearance. So he knew we needed to get into almost like fashion design.
Get their weapons. Your ambassadors your negotiations will fail. Negotiations will be complete. Urgently, you may come. They've knocked out all our communications. In the meantime, goodbye. There are too many of them.
Thank you, Ambassador, but my place is with my
They wouldn't dare. They needed to sign a treaty to make this invasion of theirs legal. They can't afford to kill us. Something else. There's nothing.
Our only hope is for the Senate to silence. Senator Palpatine will need your help.
Either choice presents great danger to us all.
We are brave, Your Highness.
If you are to leave, Your Highness, it must be now.
And I will plead our case to the Senate.
Futurism.
You're under arrest.
The monarch of Naboo was an elected official that governed the citizens of the planet. While kings were not unheard of, the people of Naboo often elected young women as their rulers, believing they possessed a form of pure wisdom that adults lacked. So today we'll be covering every ruler of Naboo in both Star Wars canon and Legends. King Japhan is the earliest known ruler in canon. We don't know when he ruled, but he was known for re-establishing peace on his planet after times of unrest. Queen Yuram came next, and again we don't know much about her rule, but a monument known as Queen Yuram's Needle was built in her honor near the Theed University. King Varuna was the monarch elected immediately prior to Queen Amidala. He ruled for 13 years and saw the election of Co. Bibble as governor of Theed. Okay, now we can get to some rulers we actually know some things about. Queen Padme Amidala was elected at the age of 14, shortly before the invasion of her world by the Trade Federation. She fought back and helped free her people. She was so highly regarded that there was talk of amending the Constitution so that she could serve beyond her 2 terms, but she instead moved on to become a senator. We don't currently know how long a term is on Naboo, but I'll come back to this when we shift over to Legends. Padme was succeeded by Queen Jamilia, and we're back to not knowing much about her. We do know that she was credited for convincing Amidala to continue serving Naboo as a senator in the Republic. During at least part of the Clone Wars, Naboo was led by Queen Niyutni. By the end of the wars, she had been succeeded by Queen Apilana. She was known as one of the youngest rulers to ever be elected to the position, and she was present for Padme's funeral. About 3 years before the outbreak of the Galactic Civil War, Queen Dalne sat on the throne. At this point in time, the planet was actually governed by Moff Panaka. Yes, that Panaka. The role of the queen was ceremonial, and she had no true jurisdiction over her planet. The final known canon monarch of Naboo was Sosha Saruna, who ruled during the Battle of Endor. She was visited by Leia Organa after the destruction of the second Death Star, and it was at this time that the Empire attacked the planet. She participated in the counterattack and held off the Empire until rebel reinforcements could arrive. Jumping over to Legends, the earliest known queen's name was not recorded, but she was elected nearly 4,000 years before Amidala's time. She was one of the original colonists that landed on the planet, and despite her title of queen, she insisted that all future rulers be elected based on merits and not a hereditary line. King Narmley ruled about 2,000 years later. He was generally well regarded, but was an explorer and gave up his throne to serve as an ambassador instead. Now we come back to Japhan I, and in Legends he was known as the founder of Theed about 800 years before the events of the films. There was supposedly a Japhan III as well, but we don't know anything about him other than his name. Queen Yuram is up next again, and we still don't know much about her. 2 unidentified queens served next. One of them was noted for having died during the Gungan-Naboo War about 100 years before the invasion of Naboo, and this event was also credited with the first election of a leader since no heir was named. I'm tempted to say that this recounting of events is more accurate based on the sources of the New Essential Guide to Alien Species and the book Darth Plagueis. The other unidentified queen I mentioned earlier that insisted on elected leadership was detailed in a role-playing game sourcebook. I think both sources are valid, but I tend to go with details from story-driven material over reference material, so the mention in Darth Plagueis wins me over, but to each his own. King Von Topolo was the next known ruler, and his reign saw Naboo finally enter the Galactic Republic only 3 decades before the events of the Phantom Menace. King Varuna came next, and he still served for 13 years. Legends provides us with some information that may still be true in canon about the nature of the terms of elected officials. Varuna's election and leadership was heavily influenced by Darth Plagueis, and as such was corrupt. His rule was not fondly remembered by his people, and they enacted legislation that limited monarchs to 2 4-year terms. It should also be noted that Varuna was eventually murdered by Plagueis. Now we're back to Amidala, Jamilia, and Niyutni, and their stories are still the same as canon, but I do want to return to Apilana. She privately harbored enemies of the Empire, including survivors of Order 66. She was discovered 1 year after Order 66 and was assassinated by the 501st Legion. Apilana was succeeded by Queen Kalantha, who was put in place by the Empire as a puppet ruler. She exceeded her 2 terms in office and was still in power by the Galactic Civil War. She was replaced by Queen Myrani, and nothing more is currently known about her. And finally, 2 unidentified queens were mentioned serving sometime after the Battle of Endor. But that brings this list to a close. You now know every